G'day and welcome to the Green Light On podcast, mini-series episode number 2, taking a look at the Cranbourne Cup final this Thursday night at Sandown Park for the Cranbourne Cup final. Ripping field assembled. Can't wait to break this one down. The Victoria Cup's a monster race on the program over the 7:15. It almost outdoes the Cranbourne Cup, which is scary to say. And on this podcast, we're going to catch up with the trainer of Fred Rose. How good is this? Sharon Lee Chignell is going to jump on the line. We're going to discuss her journey throughout her life in greyhound racing and chat a little bit about Fred Rose, who I reckon is becoming a little bit of a cult figure in greyhound racing. People just seem to gravitate toward this very, very special canine. As I welcome a very, very special man on the podcast, back-to-back weeks, Daniel Hibbard, the voice of the Cranbourne Cup in 2024. How are you, Daniel, son?
Yeah, very well, James. Very well. Looking forward to Thursday night. We've got some good racing again, and again, it's the staying race that sort of takes a bit of the headlines, and it's going to be a very intriguing contest, this one. We've got a little couple more extra ingredients into it this week compared to last week, and looking forward to that, but certainly looking forward to the Cranbourne Cup as well. It was a great night of heats, and the ones that got through have really made it a very interesting contest, and looking forward to the final on Thursday.
Well, mate, I want to turn the wheels into a little bit of a different direction. Facebook Marketplace has got me a little bit aggravated today, and it's because the lovely better half, I think she's got a Facebook Marketplace addiction. Now, the reason I say this, Daniel, son, is you can tell I'm a little bit tan today. I've been down the coast, down to Elwood, near St Kilda in Victoria. But the reason we went there is purely because of my better half and wanting to purchase something from Marketplace. Now, we seem to be travelling all over the place. I seem to get the duty, if I'm calling in Warragul, she'll jump on there and just scroll through what's available in Warragul, pick up some junk we don't need. And what's even more exciting for her is when she does the NIL, which is next in line. And if the first person doesn't happen to purchase something, she pounces, and I feel she's getting the excitement of an auction out of Facebook Marketplace. But you've got a story to tell as well. I think everybody's becoming addicted to this thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, my better half, Sue, she will often get on there to try and sell stuff, and but she has no luck. She has a lot of the tire kickers. And sort of a lot of the stuff she doesn't sell. But I put our washing machine on there to sell because we unfortunately broke the door on it and it was not worth trying to fix, so we just replaced it. So I chucked it on there and sold it yesterday. Sold it for $60, which was, I wasn't worried about how much I was going to get for it. It didn't really matter. We just got rid of it. But I've got 100% strike rate. Anything that she gives me to put on there, I can get rid of. I don't know why, but people just come and They don't cause any grief. I just put it on there, they buy it, and get the cash, and away we go. But she tends to get all the tire kickers. So it can be a dodgy place at times, Facebook Marketplace. But I haven't had too bad of a record.
Well, mate, I reckon if you keep selling stuff on there, you and Suze, my wife will end up buying something, and I'll come to your place to pick it up. The thing that worries me is I might end up for sale on there. Once she's had enough of me, I can see myself just going on to Marketplace. Was that Sue that just turned the lights off on you, by the way?
I think she must have heard me talking about her as she was flicking the lights on me. So,
playing games. Hey, we're going to turn our attention now to the heats of the Cranbourne Cup, and I was hard at work before I went down to the beach today. Put together this little package of the 7 heats of the Cranbourne Cup. What extraordinary heats they were. In Heat 1 of the Cranbourne Cup, it was Mapunga Shine for Jeff Britton, who was able to hustle through and use box number 1 to full advantage, maintaining the rail throughout to go coast to coast in Heat number 1 of the Cranbourne Cup.
Well back was Tim Zoo, second last Dr. Asher. In the hub would need a miracle. It is Mapunga Shine going through on the inside of Tanner Bale. Coming on strong now is Deadly Avenger. Looking for a run with Zipping Menage. It's Tanner Bale on the inside, Mapunga Shine. Mapunga Shine kicked at 1. Mapunga Shine beat Tim Zoo.
And then it was time for Smooth Plane to live up to his name and navigate throughout the field from box number 5, sliding past Grand Tourer, railing up underneath of Sunnyside Joe and putting away an A-grade field to advance to the Cranbourne Cup final.
Bale, and behind them was Grand Tourer. Next was Champagne Cuddle from Holden Bale, and last was Lure of Kilkenny. It is Smooth Plane the leader. 2 in front. Orly Bale's trying to run on and is doing a really good job. Smooth Plane kicked. Smooth Plane into the final. 2 lengths. Orly Bale second. Grand Tourer third. Sunnyside Joe fourth.
And this one here, punters, may well have been race of the night. Morden, Group 1 winning megastar, finding the early lead. Vincent Bale tracking him everywhere they went. They both qualify for the Cranbourne Cup after this rib-tickling match race.
Deep out was Minter Frost trying to get round Bagman, who's held up in traffic, and then Dadala Stigl and Navarino. Morton the leader, 2 in front. Vincent Bale is trying to reel him in. They're a minute in front of Zipping Kai. It's Morton coming through. Vincent Bale, Vincent Bale, Morton in a classic. Morton won it, beat Vincent Bale, 8 lengths to Zipping Kai.
And how about this from Flying Zulu? Big performance, overcoming trouble, didn't get it all his own way, had to work hard early, had to work hard down the back straight, but he packed the biggest punch when the whips were cracking.
And fourth was Poor Utility. Right off the track was Raiders Guide. Next in the field was Dr. Queenie from Iron Atlas, and Dennison Frisbee's at the rear. Up front it's Warm Cockles. Trying to get around was Flying Zulu, but didn't quite get there. Poor Utility's right there to pounce, and so Shayna Bale. Now he gets to the front on Flying Zulu, and he comes away. Flying Zulu the winner. Raiders Guide got up for second.
With the recent Adelaide Cup champion engaged in this heat of the Cranbourne Cup, it was going to be no easy assignment to defeat him, but Lakeview Emily took luck out of the equation, pinging to the front, dominating from start to finish from an eye-catching He Shines, who powered home the last 100 metres.
Left midfield, but it's Lakeview Emily. She's 2 in front now. Of in second placing Mackinaw Peach. Trying to run on then was He Shines, and further back then to Excavation. It's Lakeview Emily in front. After it was He Shines roaring. Lakeview Emily. Lakeview Emily scrambled home a half.
Heat 6 saw last year's Phoenix champion a little tardy to go, Scalacci, and with the race favourite missing the kick, it was the Gippsland enigma Fred Rose who pounced on the lead and dominated from coast to coast in this heat of the Cranbourne Cup.
Down Van Wyck, next in the field was Scalacci, then came Shimmer Curran, and last of all was Kane Bale. It's Fred Rose. He leads a length on Willa Bale, trying to run him down. Next was Fernando Phil, but Fred's in front. Fred Rose led, Fred Rose won. 3 lengths on Willa Bale, third.
And in the last heat of the Cranbourne Cup, it was Has Box 1, Use Box 1 for Kingsley Bale, setting a fast tempo, 5:05, 18:74, and putting them away through the first 100 metres in the lucky last heat of the Cup.
Punga Smoky trying to loop them, and then Voice of Thunder, Buddy Manelli and Dr. Farron now at the rear, but they might be racing for second because Kingsley Bale's a long way clear. Trying hard was Utrillo Bale. Next in the field was Bo Rhapsody. It's Kingsley Bale in front. He's getting tired, but he's clear, and Kingsley Bale won at a length and a half.
And there's Kingsley Bale taking out the last heat of the Cranbourne Cup at Sandown. I tell you what, still a hard race to watch that one, Daniel Son. I was so keen on Mapunga Smoky, and I tell you, nothing went right for him, and yet he got beaten 2.5 lengths at the end. I reckon he was the hardest luck story of the night from the heats, and not only that, hard luck story for my pocket in particular, but I thought his run was huge up for third. What did you make of that, firstly? And secondly, was there a runner that stood out from the 7 heats from your perspective?
Yeah, well, we did the Phantom Call there, and I thought it was going to play out the way we sort of had that run through last week, and he just didn't have any luck at all. And Kingsley Bale with that early speed, certainly he was drawn to advantage, and he's drawn that box again in the final, of course. The heat of the night for me was Morton, and also Vincent Bale. 29.218, and he went 5:02 to the first mark there, Morton. I just reckon he might have turned the corner a little bit on, he's been to Adelaide. He wasn't a bad series over there. He was good in the final. I expected him to win his heat, but I thought he was most impressive to me. I was taken by Vincent Bale as well. They were clearly the top 2 in that heat, obviously, and both getting through to the final. But Morton for me just looks as if he might be on the up, and I was most impressed with him.
And how about the navigation skills of smooth playing through the first 100 metres? I think anyone who does the form thoroughly would have thought this was a really sticky draw. I think you even sort of said that in the call, that how did he end up where he did? And he's just a greyhound that is racing so good at the moment, smooth playing. Hence he represented the Big V in the Nationals, and he's barely set a paw out of place, and he is strong as the day is long, old smooth playing.
Yeah, I mean, there was a few races like that on Thursday where the speed map got thrown out the window, and he was certainly one where you didn't expect him to be leaders back going out of the straight. And once it was there, I mean, he was obviously going to be awfully hard to beat against that sort of company. And he draws the 3 in the final. So, and I mean, it's all going to be about where he gets in that first corner, and if he can find a decent spot. But there's no doubting his class. Like as we say, he's raced against the elite in recent starts, and you go back through his form, and he's just racing against top opposition week in, week out. So it would be good to see him get a cup win on his resume, because he's certainly good enough to win one.
Big race preview. Well, it is big race preview time on the Cranbourne Cup MiniSeries podcast, episode number 2 you're listening to. Make sure you give us a follow on Facebook as well, the Green Light On podcast, or you can just follow me on the socials, or Daniel Sun. Get right around us, why not? This Cranbourne Cup, there has been an early scratching that's sort of late, but not late. That is race 8, number 6, Mapunga Shine. Just brought up the field then. When I was doing the form this afternoon, he was in the field. So he's only just came out. We're recording this Monday night. So we'll go through the box draw at this stage, barring any more scratchings. It'll be Orley Bale starting from box 6 at this point in time, if there are no more scratchings. But number 1 is Kingsley Bale, 2 Flying Zulu, 3 Smooth Plain, 4 Lakeview Emily, 5 Vincent Bale, 6 obviously Mapunga Shine withdrawn. Number 7 Morton, who you gave a good push for there just a moment ago. He's won 18 races out of 38, Morton. He is a superstar. He draws 7. Fred Rose, we're going to get that great insight with the Chignells shortly. Draws box number 8. 9 Orley Bale at this stage will start from box number 6, and He Shines is number 10. If there's another scratching, he gets an automatic entry into the Cranbourne Cup final. I'm hoping he doesn't, Daniel, because I reckon he's stepping up to 600 as the best bet of the night on Thursday night, without giving away too much.
Well, yeah, that's exactly right. And was caught a bit on the hop there. I didn't realise he was scratched Mapunga Shine. Just having a look at it there now. So that he hopefully there's no other changes to that to the final field. But it's an interesting box draw. Kingsley Bale's obviously got all the speed, and he will probably lead more likely than not into that first corner. It just depends on what happens behind him after that. I'm a bit surprised that Flying Zulu is actually the favourite for the final. He was good in his heat. He had to be good in his heat to get through with a lot of bumping and grinding around that bottom corner. But I'm happy with Morton, even though he has drawn box 7. His heat win was super, and I just think he's on the way up. But the way the race shapes, it's going to be a super race, and I think with Orley Bale in it as well, there might be a bit more speed. So it's a good race.
I think it's a really generous market. You're getting around $8 Kingsley Bale, $3.80 Flying Zulu, Smooth Plain $5. Lakeview Emily, who, when you go through her last couple of starts at Sandown Park, she broke 5 seconds and then just on the brink of 5 seconds at her last start. They're in her last 2 jumps there. So if she rockets out like that, she could lead all of the way. She's $6. Vincent Bale, a rising star, $7.50. $4 for Morton, 27 Fred Rose, Orley Bale 7, He Shines at 41. So there's value in this race. Look, if you happen to like one, because there's so much talent in this Cranbourne Cup field, which in itself is extraordinary, because you've had the $1 Million Chase, the Adelaide Cup was only last weekend, and yet we put together a field like this. But if you like something, Dan, and you've just got a crowd favourite like a Morton, you're getting an each way price on anything in the field.
Well, you are, and I think you've got to have. You've got to have even if it's $1 each way, you've got to throw something on Fred Rose at that big price as well. He's just racing so well, and I think that's probably the one thing with him, is that he's just racing with great heart, and you just can't discount him. I know he's $26, but he's going to need a ton of luck from box 8. But the way he's going, he might get the luck.
Their approximate prices, of course, as we go to air. Gamble responsibly, 1-800-858-858, or visit gamblinghelponline.org.au if you need some help there. But just having a look too, Fred Rose, as we speak, $27 into 26. So I reckon there's somebody hacking into my computer, sensing that we're starting to like old Fred Rose, drawn box number 8. But who are you tipping, Dan? Because we've got punters aplenty tuning into the podcast, and they don't really care what we talk about. They only care about us backing a winner.
Well, I'm sticking with Morton, and as I speak, he's firmed again. I don't know how quickly this market changes, but I'm happy with Morton. As I say, I just think he's just seems to have turned the corner a little bit in his last 3 runs. I'm happy, and going that 5:02 to the first mark. If he can repeat that, that'll certainly put him in the right spot. Happy to have Smooth Plain in there as well. I think he'll probably get crossed at the start by Lakeview Emily, but if he can get a decent enough run through that first corner, you know what he's going to be like at the back end. Lakeview Emily is an interesting one for mine. If she happened to find the front, it would certainly change the complexion of the race. I think she's a decent hope, and I'm happy to lay Flying Zulu. I don't don't think he should be the favourite. He was good in his heat, but I'm just a little bit worried that he's not at his absolute top after he missed the start in the heat. And if he misses the start here, I don't think he could possibly win the race. So happy to risk him. But I'm going to go with Morton on top of Smooth Plain and Lakeview Emily.
What price are you giving me on Flying Zulu? Because I might have a little side hustle with you here, Daniel Boy.
I wouldn't give you too much more than what he is, but I just don't think he can win it. That's just me. He probably come out
Sixes,
fly
sevens,
498 or something.
eights, nines.
Eight?
What price? Give us a price.
I'm not. I'll get 6.
Put your bookmaker hat on. You've already got one on.
I have actually. Yeah. Look, I'd say 5 or 6, something like that. I'm against him, and I don't like being against any of Jason Thompson's runners because they usually prove you wrong.
I just think the map is everything. We didn't get it right last week, or I didn't get it right in that race with Mapunga Smoky, but we're only inches away from being right. I think Kingsley Bale will push her off the inside. Lakeview Emily's going to apply some pressure in the run of the first corner. I just thought Flying Zulu or Smooth Plain, one of them are going to get that beautiful trail through the first corner. If it's Flying Zulu on the rail ahead of Smooth Plain, I'm happy to be with Flying Zulu. So you're going to need a few dominoes to fall the right way in the first 100 metres, but I think if things go to script, he could end up leaders back behind the 1 and the 4 going down the back, and I think from there Flying Zulu is just too good. So happy to play each way with Daniel Bet at around the $6 on Flying Zulu.
Hopefully he does drift out a bit for me so that I can lay it off. But it's a super race. I mean, we've left out runners like Vincent Bale, who, as we say, ran super against Morton in his heat. I think probably the only reason is probably because he's drawn the yellow, might make it a little bit more challenging for him. But he's been racing in super hard as well. Even though he was beat last week, he was still very brave from the red.
Indeed, rolling around to the other races on the program, we need to find some best bets on the card. But before we get to that, the Victoria Cup, I said earlier in the podcast, this race could be overshadowing the Cranbourne Cup itself, which I think the club would actually be tickled pink with that. To have a race worth $10,000 to the winner on the card that is effectively as good, if not better, and could be more entertaining than the Cranbourne Cup itself, which is an extraordinary feat in itself. Something to really look forward to. How do you see this race playing out? I mean, it's an enthralling battle between some of the biggest names in the sport on the rise as well. They're all coming through now.
And there's obviously the Top Gun is not too far away, and a number of these have obviously got an invitation. So it'll be interesting to see how many of them will actually get through to that race. But look, Kenya All Class and Ethanol Volume last week was a super battle. I mean, it was a small field, but they cleared out on the rest. And the other 3 actually weren't too bad, to be fair. They did make up a bit of ground on them at the back end of the race. But, yeah, Kenya All Class first go at the trip, I thought he was very good. Ethanol Volume, certainly did nothing wrong in getting beat by him. But you throw in the added element here of Ethanol Water, who absolutely bombed the start at Wentworth Park on Saturday night. You'd like to think that she's not going to do that again. She's drawn the red. If she gets out and leads, she's going to make it very hard for the other pair, and they might have a little bit more traffic to deal with. So, really looking forward to this clash again. If I think Ethanol Water's probably the play, because I think she should lead, provided she jumps well. But I tell you, if Kenya All Class can win this race on Thursday. He's certainly shares on the Kenya All Class stock market are on the up for sure, and he'll be making sure he's headline act potentially come the better races in a month's time.
Yeah, and including the Top Gun, which the invites are out, and he's amongst the early invitations to Kenya All Class. So if he can produce a big win on Thursday night, I know it was really wet when he won last week, so the 42.09 probably didn't give a true, I guess.
And what was odd about that was that it rained for like 10 minutes, and the whole for the whole night, and the only 10 minutes of rain were the 5 minutes when they were walking in the boxes. And while the race was on, and then it didn't rain for the rest of the night. It was so weird. and they had to race through the mud and the slush.
The weather gods against our man C. Smith. At least somebody's
Yeah.
against him anyway. But it's a great insight, that, Dan, because when you're not on track, you don't know those things. And it looked wet, and that's what I thought, that 42.09, especially if the rain was coming down pretty hard in the lead up, probably more a 41.8 thereabouts. And if he comes out and goes 41.60 this week, well, maybe he puts his hand up high enough to make it into the top gun. Just in wrapping up your part of the show, do you have any other best bets before we get to that?
Oh, it's a good card. I'm looking forward to seeing Hector Fawley back in the free for all on Thursday. He's drawn the red. I can't take a draw in all the most of the time, but he's come up with the red in the last couple of runs, so he'll be worth watching there in that race. And I reckon probably the one he was brilliant last week, beaten by Field Day, but Matlock's going to be awfully hard to beat in the first leg of the quaddie. I'm not sure what price he'll be. But he was super last week. He went, I'm just having a quick look, 497 to the first mark. So if he repeats that in that grade mixed 4-5, he should be in front, and he might be a bit stronger than what he finished off last week, last time out. So happy to stick with Matlock in the first leg of the quad.
Yeah, I'm happy to leave alone the Victoria Cup, but I'm definitely marking He Shines. As long as he doesn't get a start in the Cranbourne Cup, I'm marking him the clear best bet of the night, race 10, drawn box number 8. Super duper keen on him, and I'll probably have a small each way play, responsible play on race 7, number 6, Grand Toura. Just thought nothing went right last week, and he's normally a get out and go type of dog. He had to work through the field, and thought he was really encouraging holding his own against smooth plains. So race 7, number 6, he's up against Hector Fawley. It's no easy assignment, but I think with that smaller field, he's probably an each way play. You've got Bagman Timzu putting pressure on him too early, so I'd be wanting a big price with Dan Bet, but if we get that, happy to have a play. And in wrapping, mate, the $1 Million Chase. We spoke a little bit about this on the podcast last week with Dimity Ma, the Greyhound girl. What an amazing result. I mean, fairy tales do happen. Josh Formosa, Corey Lee Heinrich, just an extraordinary story. And for young Josh, who's a Heathcote boy at heart, has been in greyhound racing. His whole family have been in greyhound racing for as long as I can possibly remember. To then come out, go sort of out full-time training effectively, and come home with $1 Million Chase. For Benny Peart, who's the owner, who is a ripping bloke, you could not possibly script a better fairy tale than that.
No, you couldn't. I was calling it Bendigo on the Friday night, and there wasn't a massive crowd by any means there on the night, but I could certainly hear a few people below me sort of getting a bit excited with the race. And once they went, I sort of thought once they went past the winning post at the start, I thought he's going to win this. He's just got the Blue Camaro's going to win this, and he just landed in the perfect spot, following the perfect dog, and it all played out to perfection for him. Explicit obviously didn't get a good start, and that was the end of his chance. He got a decent bump going into the back straight, but look, it's a brilliant story, and I mean, and he summed it up probably the best. The best. He said, "I don't care about the money," and that's awesome. He said, it's the thrill of winning a race of that caliber, and the dollars can look after itself, but to have his name on the honour roll as a trainer of a winning greyhound and $1 Million Chase, I mean that's probably worth more than $1 million.
I'm sure, mate, if we took away the $1 million prize money and just gave him the trophy, he'd be fairly pissed off, I reckon, now, man, Joshy Formosa.
Oh, well, he would be, but keep a couple of $100,000. I mean, yeah.
Fair enough. Hey, Dan, as I let you go, last question. We might not have you on for the next couple of weeks as we count down to the Melbourne Cup and the big races. Give us one greyhound to follow in the next 6 weeks that can win it all.
I'm happy to stick with Explicit. I think Team Thompson will get him back, and obviously he'll be in the Phoenix. But I have a feeling he's going to win. He's going to win something big. Whether it's the Cup or whether it's the Phoenix, I just think he's too good a dog not to be in the firing line at the finish of either of those races. So if you've had a long range play on him in any of those big races, I'd say stick fat, because I think he's good enough to win something.
Inside info.
As we count down to the Cranbourne Cup final this Thursday night at Sandown Park, absolutely stoked to have a new voice on the podcast, trainer of Fred Rose, co-trainer of Fred Rose. I'm sure Jeff might have something to say about that. Is Sharon Lee Chignell on the podcast for the first time. How are you, Shaz? All right?
pretty good, thank you.
Hey, absolute thrill to have you on the podcast. I want to learn a little bit about you because I read in the form guide so often Sharon Lee Chignell, Jeff Chignell, winner after winner, this greyhound training juggernaut from Rosedale in Gippsland in Victoria. How did it all begin?
My great-grandparents had greyhounds and my grandparents had greyhounds and they lived in Townsville, and we'd go up there for holidays and we'd all trundle around to the dog tracks and walk the dogs in the morning and the afternoon, and it was really good for me. And Jeff, I think his brother-in-law had greyhounds and introduced him to the dogs, and I think once you get a taste of them, they're pretty hard to give away.
That's a fair call. When did you decide, obviously being brought up in the greyhound racing game, when did you decide that this was something you sort of want to take fairly seriously?
Well, Jeff worked a full-time job till about 3 years ago, and he said it was time for him to retire, and we took it on. We'd always had a lot of dogs, but we took it on a lot more seriously 3 years ago and thought we'd give it our best shot until we really do retire.
It's a fair job, isn't it, though? Like to break it down, I suppose, for people who aren't involved in greyhound racing, we hear so many people say they retire into greyhound racing. It's almost retiring into a job that was actually harder, but more fulfilling than what you were doing in the past.
That's it. Jeff reckons he's never worked so harder in his life. So I don't know what his retirement's looking like now. I try to convince him to get out in the boat a bit more, but he's always working with the dogs.
Well, you've been naming greyhounds with the suffix Rose for quite some time. Obviously, you're a family that live in Rosedale in Victoria, so I'm assuming that's where the Rose name comes from?
That's correct. Made it much easier to give them all their kennel name with Rose as the end part. So usually it turns out well.
I'm a little bit concerned, though, that down the track we obviously see the Wheelers, and you mentioned that you've got a fair few greyhounds and you've had a fair few, and they've gone with Bale, they've gone with Dinah. We're now seeing the Paul greyhounds in honour of, obviously, Paul Wheeler. Is there a chance that we might use the other end of Rosedale and have Fred Dale and greyhounds like that going around in the future?
We were going to name them Dale at the start, but we decided that it sounded too much like Bale.
Yes, I didn't think of that. But could you imagine Fred Rose, who is the kennel superstar, could you imagine him being called anything else? Could you imagine him being called Fred Dale?
No. No. So.
Talk to me about this dog. Like, he is one of the most exciting dogs in the country, I reckon. 97 starts. He's won about 28 of them. Prize money up towards $250,000. He is such an exciting greyhound to watch with that booming finish that he produces. He'd obviously give you heart palpitations on a regular. What's it like training a boy like this, and what's he like at home?
We love Fred. Everyone at home loves Fred. He's a bit different. He's a bit demanding, and but if we could have more Freds in our kennel, life would be a lot more easy.
That's a good point. Is he the best greyhound you reckon you've trained?
I think he's the best greyhound we had, but my husband disagrees. He had a dog called Gingerbread Man a while back, and he thought he was the bee's knees, but I think Fred is the best.
Well, even I've heard of Gingerbread Man, so it might be a close go as they draw down to the post. Hey, I used to be a big fan of a podcast that is no longer. It was the Sports Bet Boys, and I reckon a few years ago they were looking for the fattest greyhound in greyhound racing. And when they say fattest, they're using the term pretty loosely. It was for the biggest greyhound, so the heaviest greyhound that was going around. And I reckon one of your boys, from memory, might have been General Rose, was about 43 kilos. Is that about right?
That was correct.
Was he the biggest dog you reckon you've ever seen in greyhound racing?
He's the biggest one I've seen, so he's definitely the biggest one we've had.
And race well too.
He did. He raced well in Queensland, where the tracks were a little bit wider, and he did well up the straight up there. So he wasn't too well suited to Victoria, but he found his happy spot. So that was all good.
What do you think the key to greyhound training is? Obviously, you've been involved in the sport for a very, very long time, as you said. Brought up in greyhound racing, now doing full-time training and having a greyhound heading towards the Cranbourne Cup this week. And training a greyhound, mind you, that's won nearly $250,000 in itself is an extraordinary feat. But what do you reckon some of the keys are to being a successful greyhound trainer?
Fast dogs. I think fast dogs make really, really good trainers. I think all greyhounds are different and they don't all fit the same box. So the way we train Fred is not the same way we train one of the other dogs. So you just find what they like and just keep doing it, I guess.
That's a great insight. That is exactly what we were after. Talk to me about the Cranbourne Cup, which is obviously a race close to your heart, being a Gippsland trainer, and obviously we're not 100% sure with Cranbourne. We read on GRV that there is hope that racing will return to Cranbourne at one point in time. That's a possibility now, which is pretty exciting. But it'd be nice to have a runner in a Gippsland Cup final.
It certainly is. Fred ran third in this race last year, and he's still around to go around in it again this year, which is a very good accomplishment for him. And he's not as young anymore as he was last year, obviously, and he's getting older. And he boxed very badly. So we're just going to sit back and watch and hope for the best.
He's like a weary old traveller, though, isn't he, Fred Rose? I feel like when you go through his stats, and even like you said, he doesn't look perfectly drawn. There's a lot of speed underneath of him, which is obviously going to make it hard. But he's won 8 races from either box 7 or 8 throughout his career. Like, no matter what is thrown at him, he just finds a way to be able to hurdle over it and just keep on producing consistent run after consistent run.
That's true. I think most of the dogs in the race he's beaten before at various times, but in this sort of race, you've got to do everything right. And I just think they're just going to leave him in the boxes a bit behind this time. But he's there again, and he will try. That's one thing he does, because he comes from miles back, and he seems to catch them when nobody else would think that it would be possible. But he seems to get them on the line. But I don't know. This race it's a bit hot for him, I think.
Well, Sharon Lee Chignell, talk to me about last week. What the hell was going on last week in the heat? Fred Rose never begins like that, does he? Absolutely speared the lids, and I reckon if you could bet live in the run, the punters would have been just scrambling for laptops to try and get as much as they could on Freddie Boy when he led the way he did. He completely ran his race upside down last week, but he was awesome in doing so.
I didn't know if he knew what he was going to do, because it was the first time he'd ever led a race. So after 97 races, I don't know what he was thinking when he jumped to the front. But it was pretty good to watch, because I was thinking, going to have to navigate the field and go through them and around them and under them. And I'm thinking, no, he's in front. So let's just see if he can last. And he certainly did last quite well to the line last week.
You would have just enjoyed the race, though. That was like, hold my beer, I'm just going to sit back and watch this one.
Yeah, it was a bit like that.
The start of Fred Rose's career, he goes around at Sale, gets beaten by 13 lengths on debut. Then he goes to Sale. He was beaten over the 440 the week later in moderate time. Then he went to Warragul, ran second, showed a bit of class before winning 2 on the bounce. Did he show you and Jeff high ability from an early stage, or was he one of those greyhounds that just continued to improve week in, week out?
After we had him broken in, the breaker said he was a very fast dog. And then when we put him into pre-training, he showed he was a very fast dog, but he wasn't really smart at the start. So he had to get the field sense he races with today. It took him a while to work it out, but he just got better every time. The older he got, the better he got.
Well, he's 97 starts in, heading towards the Cranbourne Cup, and you could just about say in career best form. As you say, some of the greyhounds that he's raced against and beaten of late, it is pretty scary stuff as we head toward the Cranbourne Cup. What's the dream for you and Jeff in greyhound racing now? Do you have a race that you'd love to win, or is there something you'd love to achieve in greyhound racing moving forward?
I'd like to win a Group 1 race, just to show that it's all worthwhile, all the effort. So one day, that's what I hope.
The Melbourne Cup would be the Group 1 you'd love to win, or just any Group 1?
Any Group 1.
Don't want to get fussy with Group 1s,
any
do you?
Group 1 will do.
Hey, it's been great to have you on the podcast, Sharon Lee. We really appreciate you jumping on and having a bit of a chat ahead of a big race and no doubt an exciting race for Fred Rose, as you said, placed in the Cranbourne Cup last year, backing up and looks to be, if he can get the right run, he'll make his presence felt, and we'll be cheering for him here on the podcast. So thanks for your time and good luck come Thursday at Sandown Park.
Thanks, James.
What are you really gambling with? For free and confidential support, call 1-800-858-858 or visit gamblinghelponline.org.au.